Alright guys, welcome back to another video. In this one we're going to be looking at detail drawings. Now I said I would do some section drawings, and I should do a section drawing first and then talk about the details after, but I want to do something a little different. I'm going to go in reverse. We're going to look at the different details and then we're going to put it all together in a section drawing. And why would I do that, you may ask? Well, if you don't know, a section drawing is basically a cut through of the house from the roof all the way down to the foundation. So this is the house, the floor plan of the house. We have this cutting plane line that is cutting through the house, and this cut is cutting through, you can see the roof, the members of the roof. It's going to cut through the roof right here, and then it's going to come all the way down to the walls of the house, and then it's going to get its way down to the foundation, through the floor, then the foundation wall and the footing and the dirt and everything. It's going to cut all the way through. So we could see that the cut is happening at this point, but the arrow is pointing that direction. So basically everything behind here is not going to be visible. It's going to be behind the cut. All right, so we're going to cut and look in the upward direction. All right, and we'll basically draw what we're going to see. Now the section is already done for this drawing, so this is what you would see, because we are cutting through right in front of the kitchen there. We would see this wall with the window on it, we would see the roof that we cut through, we would see the eave, we would see the foundation. But a detailed drawing is basically looking at different aspects of a drawing. In this case, we're going to be looking at a detailed drawing of a foundation. So we're going to be looking at this part, but it wouldn't just be as it is here. It would also include, all the component parts that make up the foundation. So not just, oh, this is the footing. You're going to see this is the footing. Well, what's inside of the footing? It is reinforced with, with steel. Where does the steel go? How, we could how far is the steel from, what's the cover, how far is the steel from this line, from the base of the footing, and so on. There's a steel, what kind of steel is it, how deep is this buried? We're going to put a lot of details. We're going to label each and every one of these parts, tell you what it's made out of, tell you what it's called, tell you the dimensions of it, everything, all the details of the drawing. Now this is a complete section drawing, but for a detailed drawing we're going to be looking at as a part of the section, but with more details saying what it's made of, what it's comprised of. All right, so I already made a video with this drawing, but for some reason the audio did not record, so I'm going to do it over, hopefully a lot faster this time. So this is what we have. Imagine that we had a section drawn and we want to look at this part that is a lot more detailed than what we see here. We're going to draw back this, but we want to show what's inside of the footing. Where does it go? Where we show what's inside of the footing, etc. You're going to label them and everything. So let's get right into it. Okay, this is the second drawing from the second video that I did. This one is for it's a foundation detail, but it's for a wall that is inside the middle of the house, not at the corner of the house. As you could see, the only difference really is that this is lined up with the corner right here, and this one is centered. This wall, this internal wall, is centered within the foundation wall, and basically we have the parts of the floor on both sides, left side and the right side, but for this one it's only going to be on one side, like so. So let's get right into it. So the first thing we need to draw, let's get to the wall here. The first thing we need to draw is our footing. Now we know the footing is 2 feet wide, How do we know that? Well, 600 millimeters. Well, we know it's 2 feet wide because we're going to be using 8-inch block, which is 200 millimeters. So the footing is roughly 3 times the width of the foundation wall block, right? So foundation wall is 200 millimeters, so 3 times 200 is 600. So that's the width of the footing. So we want to put that foundation wall directly in the center. So I'm going to just offset 200 from either side, from that side and that side. And these two lines in the middle here, that's going to represent we're going to extend them up, and that's going to be our foundation wall. Now, something that we should also know is that the foundation, according to St. Vincent standards and maybe some other country standards also, it should be buried at least 3 feet below the ground. So we're going to offset a line here, 600 millimeters. Um, this one temporarily, well, sort of. I'm going to extend it out, and this is going to be my ground line. All right, the ground level right there. And then I'm going to just extend these lines upwards until it hits there. And then I can just trim away these lines below. All right, so we have the foundation walls, we have the footing, we have the ground line right there. Now, this is the ground. We don't just start drawing the walls of the house here, because if there's water, flooding or anything, it just runs right into the house. So what we have to do is have a step up. Now, by St. Vincent standards, you're going to have a step up of at least 12 inches. In this case, we're going to do it about 1.5 feet, which is 450 millimeters. If you're wondering about the conversion, you really need to know these things. 25 millimeters is 1 inch, and as we know, 12 inches is 1 foot. That means 12 times 25, that is going to be 1 foot. So 1 foot is 300 millimeters roughly. It's not exact because it's not exactly 25 millimeters, but we use that conversion for a rough estimate. So let's offset 450 millimeters. That's going to be the finished floor level of the house. So let me pull this one across this way to that direction, and then we're going to just extend um, this line upwards like so, um, and then we could kind of trim away all these other things. All right, let's extend this one upwards also. Yeah, and let's trim away this. Oh, so this is the finished floor of the house. This is the ground outside. So we have a step up of 1.5 feet. So obviously you will need stairs here, but we're not going to worry about that. We're just doing a detailed drawing right here. So what we need now um, is to first we need to show the different layers. So we have the finished floor, which is like plaster. When you plaster a wall, well, you kind of plaster the floor also, and that is going to be resting on top of the floor slab. So let's say this is about 18 or 25 millimeters or 1 inch thick. So we're going to offset 25 millimeters, come down. All right, so something to note right here, um, we do not build walls on top of the finished floor. So we don't cast the floor, the concrete floor slab, and then plaster it and then build the wall on top of it. No, we would cast the we would have the floor slab right here, and then we would build the wall on top of that floor slab, and then the finished floor, the plastering will come up to that wall. Okay, so really and truly, you would have something like this: the finished floor, the floor slab, sorry, and then we build the wall here, and then we would have the finished floor coming in like so up until it hits that wall like that. All right, so let me just undo all that. Right, so because of the way we drew it, we will need to just get rid of this line. All right, and in here is where we're going to be putting the wall. So we need to put a wall the line that represents the wall. Let's say it comes up to about here. Now we're not going to draw the whole wall all the way up to the roof like this, go all the way up. Remember, it's a detail of the foundation, so we don't need all this wall. But the wall continues, so we can't just leave it like that. So this wall is a 6-inch block, so we're going to put 150 millimeters, right? 25 millimeters is 1 inch times 6, 150 millimeters. So this is going to be our external wall for our house, and then we are going to just extend this across to meet it. And then I could just clean this up by trimming out right there. So we could see this is the finished floor, and then below that we're going to have our 4-inch concrete slab. I think that's the minimum 4 inches or 4 to 6 inches. So we're gonna offset 4 inches, which is 100 millimeters, from this line, come down like so, right? We'll clean this up a little bit after. And then underneath of this now is where we're going to be having what we call our um, damp proof course, damp proofing. So technically damp proofing is very thin. It really should be represented with just one line like so. But then as you can see, you zoom out and you can't really tell it's there. All right. So just for the sake of visualization, what we're going to do, we are going to offset 25 millimeters space, and then the damp proofing is going to be a line inside of this. All right. So I'm just going to draw a line in the middle, roughly. Doesn't have to be exact, like so, in the middle right there. And then I'm going to just turn this line into a center line. If you don't have it, you could add it. And then the line thickness, I'm going to bring it down to about 20.25. All right, so I'll need to change the line type scale of this. Let's see if we do 100. All right, that's fine. So this line is going to represent the damp proofing. What is damp proofing, you might ask? Well, damp proofing is like it could be polyurethane, it could be bituminous material membrane. So it could be like a plastic material which you roll out and then you kind of torch it to let it, turn into this kind of seal. It prevents moisture from coming up from the earth into the through the floors. All right, it could be plastic like this that you roll out, or it could be like a liquid that you paste on, and then it will cure into that seal. All right, that's all I need to talk about for that. So this line represents that, which is going to stop moisture that's in the earth from coming up through your floors, because it will get through the concrete. It will seep through, because the concrete is porous. So underneath of so we have the finished floor, we have the concrete slab, we have this represented by the center line, that represents the damp proofing. It could be polyurethane or otherwise. And then underneath that now we're going to have 25 millimeters offset, which is going to represent our sand blinding. Our sand blinding is just a mix of concrete. This is going to be about an inch, and then underneath of that now we're going to put 6 inches, which is 150 millimeters of our hard core. All right, which is going to be like bigger rocks, gravel, and so on. And then underneath of that we're going to have our earth, compacted earth, under here also. All right, so that's all we need. So before we continue, we need to do a long break line. So there's a tool for it that we could use, but I find it's quicker to just draw your own. So we just bring a line across horizontally, we click there, and then we come up at an angle, come down past the line, so not don't stop here, come past the line, and then we go up again at an angle. The angle doesn't really matter, I'm using 45 degrees, This is going to be our long break line, and as you should know in technical drawing, your long break line, let me just switch this to a thinner line. This means that this wall continues upwards, but we don't, it's not relevant to the drawing, so we're not going to draw it. All right, but this means that this wall continues further up. As we know, it does continue further up past this point, but we're going to stop right there. Okay. Also for the floor, same thing is happening, but we don't want to draw the entire floor across, so we're going to cut it right here. Alright, so there, and come down. Alright, so this is a little kind of big one. Let's change the size, and then I'm going to trim away all of this. Alright, so there we have the break lines in place. So now what we need to do, we're going to trim away here all these lines. Then I want to offset a line about, so this is 4 inches for the concrete slab here. I want to offset another 4 inches down, so 8 inches total, somewhere around here. Alright, so let me offset 4 inches is 100, so 8 inches is 200 millimeters. Offset this line downwards like so, and then I can trim away this piece over here because I only really wanted this part. Alright, so now I'm going to trim away this one, because this means what this is representing, this part right here is the concrete floor slab, and the concrete floor slab doesn't just run across the top, it goes down also, alright, to here. So all here is the concrete slab filling down into here, and it sits on top of the foundation wall like so, right, the 8-inch block foundation wall. Alright, so we're almost done basically. This is the drawing, we just need to put in the details. So what we're going to do is switch to our hatch layer, and then let's go to the concrete, AR conc, and then we're gonna fill in here. Now this should be a bigger number so that it would show properly. Let's see if this is good. Maybe it's too big, so let's change it to 20. Alright, so this is this pattern, hatch pattern represents our concrete. Let's do down here also. That's our concrete. Yeah, I can hit escape or close hatch, and then let's do it again. But this time we're going to be using our sand, AR sand. Alright, here it is, AR sand, and we're gonna put this here. Let's make it a little bit more dense than that. You can see it, right? So 10, that's my properties right there, and then the sun blinding layer is also going to be with that hatch. Alright, and then close hatch pattern, and then we do it again. So down here, which is the hard core, we're going to use the gravel right here, and we might have to change this to, let's see, 20, how that looks. Ooh, let's change it, not 20, let's use 100 and see. Yeah, that looks alright. Let's maybe a little bit more, 150. Alright, that's good. So that's the gravel, the hard core, and then underneath that now is going to be the earth. Alright, so let's switch back. Actually, it doesn't really matter because this line is temporary. Let's do a line here coming down and then across like that, and then let's do one here and coming up like that, and we're gonna fill this with our hatch pattern for our earth. Let's see, right there, the earth, and let's change this to maybe 200, maybe a little bigger, so 300. Right, so that's our odd pattern. Let's do it over here also, and then we could just get rid of this line that we drew. Personally, I find that it looks a little neater to just have it without the line, that boundary, and I don't think that's going to affect the hatch. Alright, so now we need to put some hatches inside of these walls. Anytime we cut through walls, we represent them with the 45-degree mitre lines. So we're going to use the first, okay, the ANS 131. So that's gonna go in here. Let's change this to maybe 100 and see how that works. Oh, that's too thin. So let's go 300. Still too thin. Let's go 800. Yeah, that's good. So here and here, like so. All right. So we're almost done. We just have to dimension this, label it. But this is basically this. There isn't much detail. We need to show the details of each of these members. So what we need to put inside now are the steel. Okay, we have this steel, we have this piece of steel, we have steel running here, right? So we're going to be putting in these steel members. Now, where does the steel go? There is a 3-inch cover, 75 millimeters, from the bottom of the footing to where the steel is, 3 inches cover on all the sides, over here and over here. All right. So basically, your steel has to be 3 inches away from this line, which touches the ground. All right. It has to do with um, protecting the steel because um, moisture might seep into the concrete and get to the steel. So you want it to be at least 3 inches away. Well, I want it to be 3 inches away. That's our standard. So I'm going to offset 75 millimeters, which is 3 inches. 3 times 25, right there, right there, right there. And then I'm going to use fillet. Radius is, let's say, 12, all right, and multiple. And we are going to fillet hair with hair, hair with hair, and so and then we just need to bring this line back down a little bit. So let's say we bring it down. I'm making it around what? Let's keep it straight using the auto mode. Around 18 maybe. All right. So this side, I'm just gonna delete that because I'm going to take this and copy it and grab the bottom of it and attach it over here. All right. So there we have our steel. All right. And then we are going to have the reason why I use 12 for the fillet is because 12 millimeters is because the steel bars inside are going to be 12 millimeter in diameter. So it just matches this curve of the steel that's there. That's why I'm using 12. All right. Um, so let's do center radius. And we're gonna draw 12. The radius is 6, which would make the diameter 12. All right. Let me just switch this to the walls layer, and then I'm going to fill it. Let me switch back to the wall layer, and then I'm going to fill it with a solid hatch. All right, like so, like that. Bam. And then we're going to place this with copies of this, and we're going to place this, grabbing it by the center. Let me just take off the auto mode, and place one here, place one there, and one needs to go right in the center. Let me find the center of this line. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Let me just move this. So, right there's the center, and then I'm going to carry it up in line with the others. All right, excellent. This one doesn't look like it's in line, so let me move it down a little bit. See if I touch the center, or maybe let me just eye it like so. It looks like my thing is snapping. Let me just turn off this. Is it here? That's the grid mode. Look like it's snapping to the grid like so. All right, that's fine. So it looks close enough. So we have that steel, and then we want another piece of steel running down to the center right here, all the way down to there, and then we're gonna come that way. All right. Um, this piece of steel is going to be running upwards, right? And then we're gonna have another piece of steel running across right here, like so. All right. Let's say around halfway through it, right there. Let me just trim this off. All right. So yeah. All right. So we have our steel running through the um, floor slab. We have the steel running through the foundation walls from the footing. We have the steel here and all that jazz, all that good stuff. All right. So all we need to do now is label it. Now, for the sake of time, dimension and label. For the sake of time, I'm not going to dimension. I'm not going to label, type every label. You could copy that if you want, but what I'm going to do is just copy them from here and bring them over. You could just look at the names, do the leader lines, and place them in the right places. All right, or maybe I will do a few, but let me do a little dimensioning first. So let's dimension here. That's the width of the footing, and let's dimension here the depth of that footing. All right, and then we will also continue this dimension, learn this from a student, and bring it to about here. All right. So this shows us that the footing is buried 600 millimeters or 2 feet below ground. All right. And this shows us the thickness, the depth of the footing, and this shows us the width of the footing. All right. So what we need to do now is just label. Just move this across a little bit. All we need to do now is just label this a bit. So first thing we're going to label, before you do, I doubt you will have this because I did it in the first video and it didn't show up. Well, you would have no clue what's going on. So I created a layer for my text and I call it details, and the height of it is 75 millimeters. All right. So you could create a new text style, give it a name, call it details. All right. And then you hit OK, and then you would change the height to 75. Apply that, set current, and then you would go to the dimension style, and then you would create a new one. You would start with the standard. It will take all the dimension, copy all the standard settings. You would call this one details also, and then hit continue. I'm just hitting escape, cancel for now, and then you would go into it, modify the details dimension style that you just created, and you would go to text and you would change the text height. Actually, you would change the text style and select that one, that text style that you created called details. Select that one, so it will inherit the height from there, 75 millimeters. All right, because it's a bit smaller, you want a bit smaller. Okay, so basically what we're going to do, go to our text layer, leader lines, and we're going to point to the different parts like so. This one is going to be called our 25 millimeter floor finish. All right, put that there, 25 millimeter floor finish, and then I'm going to just make copies of this, and I would this one is going to be pointing to the 100 millimeter floor slab right here, like so. And then I could just bring this down a little bit. So this is going, and double click on it to edit it, and this is going to be 100 millimeter floor slab. All right, now this could be a 100 millimeter floor slab with whatever number, 65 BRC fabric, etc. You other material, there might be a BRC. There would be a BRC in your floor, concrete floor slab. All right, so we have that, and so on. So then you're going to point one to your damp proof core. So that's right here. That's going to be right there. So that's going to be your 500 gram polyurethane damp proofing. Let's put that on the next line, damp proofing. All right, and then we have the sun blinding and so on. So let me just copy these things, that and that. Let me copy these. You could pull the leader lines and do them on your own. So this is the sun blinding layer. We're going to put that right here. That lines up with, and that is going to also have the hard core in place, 150 millimeter well compacted hard core. The sun blinding is a little bit close, so let me just bring this down, bring this up a little bit. Yeah, bring this down a little bit. And we have the compacted earth right here, compacted earth right there. We have the ground level right here that we need to put where that line is. We need to say that this is our 150 millimeter exterior wall. You could type that. I'm just gonna copy it for the sake of time. Let me do all of them one time. So this is the pointing to the steel. This is pointing to your steel, which is your 12 millimeter diameter bars, steel bars, and it is inside of the block cores, and they're at 400 millimeters on center to center. All right, there's 400 millimeters between them, measuring from the center. So, and this is our 600 wide by 200 deep continuous strip footing with three 12 millimeter diameter steel bars inside of them. All right, and then we also have this, which is pointing to the 8-inch or the 200 millimeter foundation wall, 200 by 200, 200 thick, 200 wide by 200 high. Okay, the height of a block is also 8 inches. 6-inch blocks is the 6-inch blocks. They are 6 inch blocks. They are 6 inches wide by 8 inches high. All right. It doesn't matter the thickness of the block. They are all 8 inches high. All right. So let me just copy these. I'll place them on this drawing like so. All right. And this points to This points to the 150 millimeter exterior wall. The So as you can see, the leader lines are basically calling out what the item is and the dimensions, and any other information that is useful. Okay, it's not all going to be about dimensions. So this is giving the dimension of the footing in this leader. All right, and so on. So there we have it. All we need to do is just put a title underneath our drawing, like so, and your scale would be like 1 to 10, 1 to 20, something like that. All right, so let me just change that. Yeah, so there you have it. That's your foundation detail drawing for your exterior wall. The next one that we're going to be doing is going to be the foundation detail, but for your interior wall. So let's say this is a load bearing wall in the middle of your house, such as this one right here. We have a foundation underneath that wall, so we're going to show the detail for it. It's basically the same thing, except this one is to the end, this one is centered in the middle over the foundation wall. All right, so let me leave the video right there. Until next time, until the next drawing, peace.